Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be part 103, chapter 103, entitled Nezu's Simulated Reality Facility. The class gathered in the new gym. Inside was a large room, and in rows were cubicle devices with wires coming from them. It looked rather ominous, and according to Ida, Uraraka, and Kaminari, it gave off very sci-fi vibes. There was also a central area with a desk and monitors, buttons covering the desk. In front of them stood their teacher, looking resigned, as well as the principal and Hound Dog. "Good afternoon, Class 1A. I hope you're ready for a brand new training method," the man said, looking cheerful. "Welcome to Gym Epsilon. In this gym, we can run programs that will take your consciousness and input it into a virtual reality. At the moment, it's not fully functional, as we can only run each module individually. But we are testing its functionality and if it is worth further developing this project. While training in a virtual reality won't help your physical skills, it can help for your mental skills. The first program was created by a group of third-year support students, based around a video game which already had VR elements," Nezu said. "I have already run the teachers through it first, and after getting approval from the vast majority, the project has moved forward. This week, I have gone through testing each year with it to determine where such a training method might be the most useful to help you become stronger heroes, who are better prepared to fight against villains in whatever tactics they might use," Nezu said. "As such, you will be subjected to the first program, which is based on the game Five Nights at Freddy's, involving the first 4 games. A murmuring broke out, Kaminari and others looking excited. "We get to play video games? Awesome!" "This is not made to be a fun experience," Aizawa warned. Nezu gave a nod, smiling. "As I said, this is a training experience. This game has been selected to be the first made because it includes elements of horror that are often present in psychological attacks. Whether through use of weapons or quirks, villains will use terror to make you make mistakes and incapacitate you. The goal of this training exercise is to help you get used to the idea of working through fear. Since not everyone fears the same thing, this might not be effective. But we consider this a more controlled alternative than experiencing a psychological attack in the field. Hound Dog is on standby should the experiences prove too much. At any point, you will have an emergency exit command that will immediately stop the simulation," the principal said, explaining why Hound Dog stood next to him and Aizawa. The class murmured worryingly to each other. "These machines are designed to simulate feelings as close to reality as possible. Unlike the video games, you will feel pain if you are attacked. Remember that all the pain is in your mind and your body is not being hurt. While inside, you will be unable to use your quirks. You will also be restricted in what you can do based on restrictions of the game. Depending on the results of the test, we might find a way to make them more advanced to add our own twist to make the training even better," Nezu said, and Aizawa coughed. "Right, sorry, I'm rambling again. There is also a time dilation. For the 6 hours that will pass in the game, you will spend 1 hour asleep. Each 6 hours takes 1 hour, so you have 15 hours in the game to pass before we will pull you out since class will be ending. Each of you will select a machine which has a random game assigned to it. Hound Dog and Aizawa-kun will come around and hook you into the machine. The emergency phrase is Red Mind Exit. If you're having verbal trouble, you can also tap your heart 3 times to be pulled out." With that, the students were allowed to go pick a machine. Izuku didn't see anything different about them and selected one. Standing next to Kaminari and Sato, who came to the machine next to him, Izuku waited, watching the 2 teachers go from student to student. Soon Aizawa was standing in front of him. "Remember, kiddo, if you need to use the exit, do so. This program is experimental, and Nezu doesn't want anyone to get traumatized, so he's made sure to leave this as safe as possible while still serving its function," Aizawa said, patting him on the head after he had finished hooking him to the machine. Little electrical pads were over some of his muscles, his hands were in wired gloves, and he was pressed back against a cushion. Izuku gave a nod. "I promise," he said, and Aizawa gave him that small smile, with the warm look in his black eyes that made Izuku feel wanted and cared for. Trust and pride was clear in that gaze. The teacher removed his hand and then placed a weird helmet over his head. His vision went dark, and he smelt a sweet scent briefly before he fell asleep. For a long time, everything seemed black, and then words appeared in front of him. The first word appearing was tutorial. More and more text appeared underneath it, and Izuku read over the text carefully. It explained that he was home alone, in his bedroom, and that he had to survive till 6 a.m., starting from 12 a.m. So that would be the time dilation the principal mentioned. The tutorial showed how you needed to listen for breathing outside the door, and if you heard breathing, then you needed to close the door and wait. If you didn't hear breathing, then he could check with a flashlight to see if an animatronic was at the end of the hallway. He also had to check the closet for something called Foxy, and shine a light on him to return him to normal. He also had to check the bed occasionally. There was a lot of information. But he thought he had a basic understanding, and so he reached for the start button. A line of text appeared, 5 days until the party. And then he saw a child alone, locked in a room with plush toys, looking like a bear, a chicken, a bunny, and some red one that was missing its head. The child moved, and so did the eyes of the bear on the bed, following the child. The child banged on the door and eventually fell down, crying. The scene faded away, with more text appearing. Tomorrow is another day. As the text vanished and a bedroom appeared, Izuku frowned, wondering what that scene had been about. Maybe some sort of in-game thing that the principal hadn't removed. He looked around the bedroom, taking a deep breath. He looked behind him, seeing the bed with a cute bear plushie. Around the room were some decorations, including toys that seemed like they would be for a younger child. And the room seemed enormous, giving a more child perspective. He stepped towards the closet, opened it, and he saw nothing that looked like Foxy that the tutorial had shown. He went to one of the doors, pausing outside of it as he held the handle. Not hearing any breathing, he opened the door wider and shined the flashlight down the hall. He didn't see anything, and testingly, he tried to step out of the room, but found an invisible barrier blocking him. He backed away from the door and went to the other side of the room, checking the other door. Once more, he didn't hear the breathing, and he flashed his light down the hall. He didn't see anything, but he thought he heard footsteps moving away. He went back to the bed, checking the plushie there, which almost seemed to be vibrating a bit. But as the light hovered on it, the plushie stopped vibrating. He checked the closet again and saw nothing. He went to the left door, hovering, and his heart spiked as he heard a weird mechanical-sounding breathing, and he slammed the door shut. He waited, keeping the door closed for a moment, before hesitantly opening it again. The breathing was gone. He flashed the light down the hall and caught sight of something purple turning around the corner. Izuku moved away, going to the other door now, listening. He didn't hear anything, so he opened the door and peeked. He saw a yellow chicken thing standing at the end of the hallway. The chicken had so many teeth that gleamed in the light of his flashlight. The thing's appearance was all torn up, revealing a metal frame underneath it, and it had a glowing red eye. In its hand it held a cupcake-looking thing, and as Izuku squinted at it, he was fairly sure the cupcake also had a bunch of teeth. He swallowed, going back to the bed. He flashed his light on the vibrating, duplicating plushie that now had teeth. He shuddered. "Too many teeth," he whispered. Glancing at the time, he saw it was only 12:15. He stood there and frowned, swearing that he could hear pots and pans moving and banging around. For a moment, he was reminded of how his mom would sometimes wander in the kitchen and fiddle with the dishes. He went to check the left door. Distracted by the creepiness of all the teeth from these things, he forgot to listen for breathing. He opened the door and stumbled back as something pushed its way in. It was the purple thing, and it appeared to be a giant purple bunny with so many teeth and glowing yellow eyes. It, too, was torn up and had a lot of metal showing. The thing screeched, running at him, and Izuku screamed. He tried to flee, but found himself locked in place as the thing lifted him to its head, and then pain blossomed briefly as it bit his head off. The screen faded to black. Izuku held a hand over his racing heart, staring wide-eyed. The pain was gone, but he still felt as if the teeth were piercing into his neck, feeling the muscles and bone giving away easily. The brief moment of blood trailing over his shoulders, and the up-close view of the monster's throat. In front of him were the words, "Try again." Izuku had to take a moment to calm down. That had been shocking and terrifying. The pain had been brief, but seemed fairly mild. This was for training. The purpose had been to scare him. Now he knew what to expect, though, so it should be easier, right? He clicked the button to try again. Tsuyu flinched as the red fox creature banged at the door, her power draining away. She had failed to keep watch on Pirate's Cove to keep it in its hole again. She took a deep breath, opening the door back up as the banging stopped, opening the cameras, and she frowned, unable to find the yellow chicken thing. Chica, according to the posters in the office. She checked her door and gasped as she saw Chica right at the door. Hurriedly, she tried to press the door button, but it just buzzed, unable to close. It was jammed. Tsuyu screamed as the thing came into her room, and she was dragged off again, once more being stuffed into the giant bear and having her body compressed as metal pierced into her. The pain faded, and she was left in darkness. Shuddering, she clicked the no button, unable to take any more. She woke up, the headset on her head. Aizawa-sensei came over to her, helping her get out. "Are you okay?" he asked. She gave a slow nod. "I just need a moment," she answered. "Take all the time you need. If you want to talk to Hound Dog, go ahead," he said, finishing removing the devices. Tsuyu nodded, and after a moment went over to the hero. Hitoshi glared. "I see you, ugly," she said, staring out the window as the yellow bunny thing stared at her through the window. She opened the thing, clicking the button, trying to move the thing away. And then she heard a beeping. An error beep. The audio no longer worked. "Oh, fuck. Hey, buddy, you won't hurt me, right?" she said, pressing the audio repair button, desperately trying to get it to repair in time. The thing, Springtrap, as she had been told, poked its head through her door. Hitoshi saw it finished repairing and frantically clicked the sound button, trying to lure Springtrap away. The sounds failed, and soon Hitoshi was dying to the thing. She glared at the screen. "Oh, it's on. I'm so gonna beat this stupid thing," she said, shaking a fist as she slammed the try again button. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 103 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 104 will be up next. If you're at all a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, I hope you got some good enjoyment out of this chapter. If you've never played it or don't know what it is, please check it out if you're a fan of horror games at all. I think it was really cool the author did this. I think there's a couple of really cool fics out there that kind of have similar premises with like the virtual reality going through horror games kind of mentality. I like the fact that the author threw this in here. There's some more going on as well. The next chapter, they kind of talk about like the experience a little bit. So, it'll reference back to it, which will be interesting to see. If you're a fan of the fanfic Hero Class Civil Warfare by Rogue Druid, they also wrote another fic, and to my understanding, it was still ongoing, but it's been a while since I looked into it. It was called Locked in Digital, and it's very Izuku thrown into virtual reality type world where, he's got to be put through all these trials, and, he spends so much time in there consistently having to beat games like Five Nights at Freddy's and Slenderman and some of those other games too. So if you're interested in all this type of concept from a fic, I highly recommend that as a fan fiction to read. Regardless, though, I'd love to hear what you all think about this chapter, so drop the thoughts, comments, reactions below. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.